Hi, folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. This time, I'm not really covering a paper, but just trying to get some thoughts on some recent developments out. So, recently, Google announced their new LLMs, and one of the headline features of those LLMs was really large context windows, larger than anything we've seen so far, up to 1 million tokens, and even going up to 10 million tokens internally in research, apparently. And this generated a lot of interesting discussion online about what such huge context windows mean for RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. So just wanted to share some thoughts. Who knows, maybe all this will be irrelevant or wrong in the future, but here goes. To start with, let's try to get an idea of how large 1 million tokens is. At a very rough average, one word is about 1.3 tokens. And with that conversion factor, a million tokens is 750,000 words. Now let's compare that to some other usual pieces of output produced by humans. A 3-hour long speech at a normal speaking pace of a human is only about 25,000 words. The average novel is 90,000 words, so that's about 117,000 tokens. War and Peace, which is really long, is 587,000 words, and that just about touches 1 million tokens. It's 250,000 tokens. So 1 million tokens is a lot, judging by the size of human created artifacts, and 10 million, of course, is even larger. So the question then becomes, how does RAG change when context windows are so big? One of the motivating drivers for RAG to start with was that you wanted to use LLMs with knowledge, with context that was larger than would fit in the context window. There were other motivators as well, but that was one of the main motivators. So now that window sizes are so large, one could argue that you could just fit your entire corpus into the context window if it fits. And a lot of corpora will fit into a 1 million token size window. So that motivation gets weaker as context window sizes increase. Some of the other motivating factors were things like relevance. You don't just want to stuff everything into the prompt. You do want to do some pre-filtering and pick out the things that are relevant to the given task or to the user's query. And what that means is you want to exercise some control over the retrieval and ranking of the items that your retrieval pass found. So you want control over ranking and retrieval. And another big motivator for RAG was to be able to use private data, to connect up with private databases, with private documents, private APIs, and so on. And that motivation still remains. These are things that you can't just dump out in a static way and stuff into the window. Often these are things that are live API calls, and the values have to be retrieved in that moment. So with this, we see that, yes, large window sizes make RAG easier in some sense, but there are other motivating factors for which you still do want RAG. You've also got to remember other constraints like latency and cost. So I'm not sure what the API pricing is for models with such large windows, but it's likely to be pretty expensive. They also said in their literature that the latency for such a large window is pretty high, up to 60 seconds. And so that becomes a constraint on using these large windows on every call. So maybe you want to use such a large window once in a while for something exceptional, but for your run-of-the-mill production traffic, you still do want to limit what you stuff into your context window. You do still want to exercise some control. So what does this mean for the future of RAG? Here's where I try to prognosticate. I think the cool implication of these large windows is that the simple use cases will become even simpler. So the dead simple use case, which was to be able to chat with your own private corpus. If that corpus fits within a large context window, you could stuff it all there and get a pretty decent V1 prototype of your application or your chatbot. So it makes the on-ramp a lot easier. You can get up and running fast. But I think the high complexity end of the spectrum is still very much going to use the full toolkit of RAG techniques like building their own retrievers, building their own rankers, and so on. So the complex use cases that require very precise control will still do what they're doing currently. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. If you like content like this, please like the video, consider subscribing, and I will see you all next time. Thank you very much.